Welcome to the OD Sports Report. I'm J.D. Redmond. Football news never stops, and today we'll hear about the predictions concerning NFL negotiations and how league changes will affect college football. Also, offense-defense has developed some new programs that may benefit you. This past weekend marked the first offense-defense next-level combine in Massillon, Ohio, and we've got some highlights from that event as well as some information on what you can expect in the weeks to come. Spring is getting closer, and that means offense-defense summer camps are right around the corner. We're excited to give you more information about our new high school curriculum and the Thumps Tempo instruction that players can look forward to this year. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back with Artie Gigantino and the OD Sports Report. I'm J.D. Redmond. Welcome back to the OD Sports Report. With negotiation talks between the NFL and labor boards being canceled time and again, at least for now, the immediate future remains unclear for professional football. Here to give us his opinions, our OD operations manager and former NFL coach, Artie Gigantino. Thanks for being with us, Coach.
What's going on, J.D.? A lot of stuff in the world of football, that's for sure.
Well, tell us what's the news.
Well, in terms of the NFL labor situation, I think there's a couple things that are going on. First of all, on Friday, Friday, February 25th, the NFL will meet with the Roger Goodell and his group of people will meet with a head football coach, a general manager, and another representative of each team in Indianapolis at the NFL Combine. That will be a situation where they update those people from those teams as to what progress has been made or has not been made. So I think that's the first thing that's going on. So everybody's kind of gets an idea of what's happening. I think it's been a good move that they have offered or they have been helped by a mediator, that both sides now can sit down. And I think as a result of that, you've seen less things, JD, come out publicly because the mediator has said, shh, nobody talk once we come outside this building. But, you know, at the end of the day, this thing is not going to be solved by March the 4th unless they get an extension, which they are working very hard on right now, so that you can have trades and you can continue with some things in terms of some of the rookies and whatever, and players can work out and coaches and everybody can report to the office every day. So I think that's the first thing that's going to happen. The second thing, and, you know, it's about money and who has a bigger slice of the pie, but I think another huge issue, I know, is the 18-game schedule. And I think it's ridiculous. I think they're absolutely out of their minds to move to an 18-game schedule. I mean, we've got a perfect situation now with 8 divisions, 4 teams, 8 people in the playoffs each year from each, it's a great situation. To take that and fool around with it, as John Madden said, screw around with it, I think is absolutely ridiculous. And you're going to ruin the golden goose. The game is great the way it is. Keep it the way it is. And the other thing, and I talked about this before, it's a contradiction by the National Football League to say they want more safety in the game, but then they're going to play more games. That makes absolutely no sense. Last comment, during these negotiations with the Players Association, no owners are there. There's only been 1 or 2 owners. Jerry Richardson was the first one, but the owners right now are not taking part in it. And ultimately, they're the ones that are going to have the decision to say yay or nay on whatever agreement they come up with. It's a complicated thing, but again, let's not ruin the golden goose here.
Do you think there's more movement than was expected?
No, I have no idea. I don't think anybody does. I mean, what is movement? Movement to me is if you have the 3 or 4 top issues. If one of those gets solved, well, then that's movement. But you know what? None of those have been solved yet. So, I mean, the little things, guys smiling at each other, guys yelling at each other, who knows? Who cares? I mean, it's the big issues that matter here.
Are there anything that has surprised you about what's happening so far?
Yeah, I think the surprise has been everybody was yakking at the beginning about what we're going to do and what we want, and now everybody's quiet. And I think that surprise is a good thing. However, do not take that as a means of saying they're making some progress, because that does not indicate to me the silence that any progress is being made.
Very well, Coach. With the NFL being the nation's most popular sport as well as the highest grossing professional sport in the U.S., it's safe to say that if there is no 2011 season, the entire country will feel the impact.
You know what? Though, let me say that there will be a season. I mean, it's just a matter of when. I mean, they cannot afford to cancel the National Football League season. It's way, way too much money in everybody's pockets. So I don't believe that's ever going to get canceled. It could be delayed, and it could be a long off season. But I think when we come around here on September, 2011, the games will be played.
Who do you think's more prepared, the coaches, or the players, or the owners,
To do what?
for a delay?
Oh, I think the owners are, because they're the ones with the cash in their pockets.
Sure.
So, I think the owners are. I think this hurts the players more than it hurts the owners. But you got to also remember this, and a lot of people don't know this. The National Football League, players get paid only during the fall when they play games. I mean, you don't get a check year-round. You get X amount of money based on your salary for the 17 weeks or 16 weeks that you play games. So, they get paid a ton of money in the fall, and if you do a good job of saving your money and accounting for a whole year budget, you're going to be okay. But some of the young guys that have issues because they're spending it all the time. But a lot of people don't know that. The players get chunks of change, their checks in the fall based on a game check.
Great, Coach. On to other news. Although negotiations are still taking place, the NFL Combine will press on, and the 2011 Scouting Combine, which will be held from February 24th to March 1st, is the annual job fair for prospective NFL players. Already these combines will be televised. It seems the public can't get enough football. What makes this such an exciting event to watch?
Well, I think it's like recruiting. It's like the NFL draft. It's now gone to 3 days. The NFL Combine is every fan wants to get the inside track, whether this guy or that guy is a great player and what he looks like in shorts as opposed to helmets and shoulder pads all the time. And by that, I mean athletically. I think the Combine is a great thing. It's hard work. I've been at it many times. I mean, you're up at 6 in the morning and you work until midnight or 1 in the morning with meetings. I mean, it's not a bunch of giggles back there. I mean, you're working the entire time. Now, that being said, like you said, it is a very important time for some young players that are getting tested. Now, everybody knows Cam Newton and some of these guys, Fairley, the kid out of Auburn, also the defensive lineman. These guys are great players, and they really don't have to work out at the Combine. But it's those guys at the end of the first round, guys in the second, third, and fourth round projected that can really help themselves from a financial standpoint if they do a good job at the Combine and they move their stock up, say from the middle of the third round to the middle of the second round. That being said, only 300 to 320 kids. I think this year there are 312 kids that have been invited. So not everybody gets invited to this thing. So it's a select group, and you as a player got to go in there and do a good job because for you, it's a business meeting. This is a business interview. Again, it's not a bunch of chuckles. It's not a bunch of fun times going out in downtown Indianapolis during this thing. I mean, this is, day to day, all 4 days, you have an entire schedule that is completely filled with different things to do.
Can you walk us through the schedule a little bit?
Yeah, I can, and I'm going to read it here a little bit. What they do, they have 4 different groups that come in, and it's interesting. The first day will be the tight ends and the offensive linemen and the specialists. The second day is the quarterbacks, wide receivers, and running backs. The third day is the D linemen and the linebackers, and the fourth day is the defensive backs. And what they'll do, they'll come in, they'll travel. The first day is for travel. They'll get there, they'll register, they'll go to a hospital and get a physical examination, they'll get an orientation, and then they're going to begin their interviews. Every evening, different coaching staffs will sit down in a room in various hotels and say, okay, JD, come on in. We want to sit and talk to you for 15 minutes. And they'll ask you some tough personal questions, but every guy in the staff that's there wants to get a better feel for you off the field. Then the second day, what each player will do, they'll get more medical examinations, they'll get measured, and believe me, you never want to go to a measurement thing at an NFL Combine because if you've ever heard the expression meat on the hoof, that's what it is. You got a bunch of old scouts sitting around, about 300 of them, watching guys stand up there literally in their underpants. That's all they have on, stepping on a scale, getting measured, getting pictures taken. I mean, it's a weird thing. But, hey, that's also part of it. Okay, another thing they do on that second day is meet with the media. They have some psychological testing that day, and then they finish the day with interviews. On the third day, they have an NFL Players Association meeting, JD, where the NFL Players Association talks about what the union is and talks about what to accept. Then they get the Wonderlic test, which is a 50-question, 12-minute test that supposedly tests your psychological ability to play football and what kind of human being you are. And I'm going to give you this test when we're done because I got a copy of it here. We're going to see where you fit in. Okay? And then they end that day with more interviews. Then the fourth day, they do the workouts. They go to Lucas Stadium in Indianapolis and go through a series of workouts, 7 different tests, and some various football-specific drills they're put through, and we'll talk about that in a minute. So it is a full day each day, and especially for the guys that have to travel. Then again, they'll leave that night after they work out or have more interviews.
An incredible amount of attention that these athletes receive, and of course with the money that is invested on them, it's understandable. Tell us a little bit about how is the player's character and their development, and perhaps his reliability, dependability. How is that judged?
You know, it's like anything else. The hardest thing to judge in the world is a human being because, you know, they're not robots, and obviously we're all susceptible to different things, good and bad. There have been some unbelievable busts. Ryan Leaf, for example. I mean, he was, you know, him and Peyton Manning were on the board at the same time, and the Colts took Peyton Manning, and the Chargers took Ryan Leaf, and guess what? Ryan Leaf's in jail somewhere, and Peyton Manning is obviously Peyton Manning, one of the greatest quarterbacks in the history of pro football. I was at the Raiders. We took Jamarcus Russell with the first pick. Again, we had some controversy in the office as to why we should take him or why we shouldn't. But again, we as an organization took him, and that was a horrible, horrible mistake. I think it's very important for every kid to come across like he wants to be a football player. Football's the most important thing, and you know that then you get judged by there. I'll never forget this story. Jim Mora, the ex-head football coach of the Colts and the Saints, great football coach, told me one day at the combine. Was at the combine about whatever it was 10 years ago. I said to him, you know, blah, 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 because I've known him for a long time. You know, we were talking about Peyton Manning. We were talking about Ryan Leaf. He said, you know, I had them both in. We were still undecided who we were going to take. We loved Peyton because of his character and his work ethic and the kind of human being he was. He said, but we loved Ryan Leaf because we thought he had more talent and be able to move around. Jim said he asked both of them the same question. He said, if we take you with the first pick in the draft this year, what are you going to do the next day? So we're going to take you on a Saturday. What will you do on Monday, you know, when the week starts? Peyton Manning said to him, I'm going to be at the office at 6 o'clock in the morning watching film with the offensive coordinator, Tom Moore. Okay. Ryan Leaf, he asked him the same question. Ryan Leaf says, well, on Sunday, I'm probably going to go to Hawaii with a bunch of my friends and celebrate for a couple of weeks. Jim Morris said, decision made. He said, we're leaning toward Peyton Manning anyway. But he said, you know what? That just told me everything I needed to know about Peyton Manning and a guy like Ryan Leaf. Point being here is you're investing a ton of money in these guys. They're almost like a vice president of IBM. You had better want a guy that is totally focused, a la Aaron Rodgers, a la Manning, a la Tom Brady.
Well, I even heard Coach Moore talk yesterday about whether or not a player will look him in the eye and how does he shake his hand.
You know what? And this game, and you can look at the New England Patriots as a great example of this. The word character is more important right now than it ever has been. Obviously, you need talent. Obviously, Tom Brady's got some great talent. But that character word and that intelligence factor is so important. And I'll tell you why. Look at the Green Bay Packers and look at the Pittsburgh Steelers. The complexity of their offenses and the defenses especially in the Super Bowl, you can't play if you're not very smart because of all the things that are going on. So character and intelligence, willing to stay out of trouble, willingness to put the time in off the field are so important. Look at Michael Vick. Look at the difference between him now and then when he was with the Falcons. When he was with the Falcons, he was the last guy to show up and the first guy to leave. Now, he ran around and made some plays, but he never reached his potential. He's doing that right now in Philadelphia. Obviously, he's trying to make up for a very, very, horrible thing that he did, but he's paid his price for that. But his focus and his ability now to prepare is so much different than it was.
What about a player being able to play well with other players?
Well, that's the other thing, too. But, again, smart guys know, and I know every Pop Warner coach in America says, hey, we got to play as a team, and there's no I in team, and, all those corny phrases. Well, you just got to be able to do that. Because if there's one sport in this world that is a team sport, it's football. I mean, basketball isn't. Baseball certainly isn't. Hockey might be. Golf isn't, obviously. But this thing is the ultimate team sport.
What about some red flags? What do you look for in a player?
Well, I think one is if the guy looks like he's been out all night when he's there. I think, two, that ability to answer the questions honestly. And the ability to, like a Bill Parcells would say, or Jim Moore, look the guy who's asking the question in the eye. And the other thing is, and there are no secrets anymore in this day and age. I mean, that computer, that thing can find anything about any of us. Don't lie. If you've done something in the past, you've had a drug problem, you've had something that's on your life record that's probably not very favorable, tell everybody. Because they will forgive and they will forget. But they will not forgive and they will not forget if you lie. And I think, it's important. And again, it's not easy. You literally are in the room with 15 to 20 adult men, okay, and sometimes a female, because some teams bring a psychologist with them, taking notes, and you got to sit there and everybody's looking at you. I mean, it's not that easy. For some guys, it's easy. For some guys that maybe aren't as educated or not as intelligent, don't misinterpret shyness as arrogance. You gotta look through it. You gotta do it all in 15 minutes.
Coach, thank you for your insight. Appreciate it today. We'll be right back with the OD Sports Report and some college football.
Offense, defense football camps, ages 7 to 17. Over 40 plus locations across the nation. Join us this summer and learn the skills necessary to dominate the gridiron. Offense, defense football camps. The oldest and best contact camps in the country. OD.com.
I'm J.D. Redmond here with former USC Trojan and L.A. Ram coach Artie Gigantino, and you're tuned in to the OD Sports Report. College football is pretty quiet right now, but you can believe with this year's league changes, some big noise is about to boom. Artie, give us some insight on the biggest league changes and what it means for the competition in college football.
Well, the landscape has changed in college football. Never before in the history of college football have this many teams changed the league affiliations than ever before. This year, there were 19 teams that went from one league to another. That's amazing. You talk about money right now, and you talk about television, and you talk about the ability to play in the BCS championships. Boy, that really dictated what people could do. Let me run down some of what I think are the major changes and how they're going to affect what goes on. First of all, the Big Ten added Nebraska. Big Ten now will have 12 teams, and they're not going to change the name of the Big Ten, but they're going to have 2 leagues, and they will play a championship game. Again, mega bucks coming in, not only for the Big Ten itself, but also for the member schools. So Nebraska shocks everybody. I never thought they would leave the Big 12, and they go to the Big Ten. The Pac-10 picks up Colorado and picks up Utah. Again, the Pac-10 will now have 12 teams, and they will go and have a championship game. Mega bucks again for the Pac-10 itself under new Commissioner Larry Scott and also the individual schools. Again, that's been predictable. I didn't think Colorado would go, though. I thought it would be BYU and Utah, but guess what? BYU moved. They went from the Mountain West to an independent. Again, they will now be on television, just like Notre Dame is, for each and every one of their games. This is a major deal that they made with ESPN. And again, for the BYU program, I tell you, this will take them even further up the ladder in terms of national attention and national status. Now, the Big East, they stole a member of the Mountain West. And by the way, the Mountain West lost 3 teams. They lost TCU going to the Big East. They lost BYU going independent, and they lost Utah. But they picked up Nevada, Fresno, Boise, and Hawaii. So when you look at the Mountain West this year, you're going to see a completely new landscape of who's playing who and who are the members of this very, very good conference. But lastly, like I started to say, the Big East went and got TCU. Now, there's one reason TCU is doing this, because if you win the Big East, you qualify for the BCS. TCU was not an automatic qualifier when they were in the Mountain West. I think it's a little weird because the Big East is on the Atlantic Ocean and Texas is somewhere close to Mexico, a little bit closer to the West Coast. So TCU is going to rack up the mileage plus on this one. I think TCU is going to go in there and just clean up, and I think they're going to win it. I think they're going to win it big in football this year because there's nobody in the Big East right now that can compare to the program that TCU has. TCU will also now broaden its horizons on a scale of national recruiting because basically they recruit in Texas. But now, because they're going to be in the Big East territory, they're going to be in Florida, they're going to be in the Northeast, hey, they're going to expand their recruiting a little bit. So those schools have the biggest impact. The Big Ten, the Pac-10, the Big 12, and the Big East. One last comment. The Big 12, which has had a sensational championship game for the last 10 or 12 years, whatever it's been, will now not have a championship game because they lost 2 members of their Northern Division in Nebraska and Colorado.
You spoke briefly about recruiting. It seems to be a roller coaster cycle through the years. What are some of the rule changes?
Well, I think the biggest rule change, quote, over the last 10 or 15 years is you are limited to your contact with players and their parents. We talked on a previous segment about, doing things with kids and getting to know their families and having dinner with them. You can't do any of that anymore off campus. But now what the NC2A is doing is cracking down on the amount of texts and phone calls and emails a player can have. You can only text a player once a week. You can only have a phone call once a week. There's some legislation now that's being discussed that a text message, an email, and a phone call are the same thing, so you can only have one of those each and every week. And I think it's a good thing because, you want to take some of the pressure off these young kids. However, it is more important than ever for schools to have great websites so the youngsters and their families can go on those websites, get all the information they could possibly need to make a decision. And I think the coaches, the college coaches, have got to do a better job of educating the high school coaches and counselors as to what each individual university's got to offer.
How does the internet and the social networks, Twitter, Facebook, how is it affecting recruiting?
Well, I think it's affecting it a little bit. There were a couple instances this year where guys were bombarded by Facebook, bombarded by Twitter, whatever that thing is called, and, they ended up changing their minds because, again, information ends up coming across on there. There's this young man out of Crenshaw High School who was going to go to SC, and he ended up going to Oregon because he feared for his family's safety if he went to USC. Now, did that have something to do with it? Who knows? Only he and his family know, but that was all put on Facebook. Now, something had to do with it that Oregon's a pretty good program, and the guy who's their biggest benefactor owns Nike and runs Nike, so that probably had something to do with it too. But to answer your question in all seriousness, I think it's got something to do with it because, again, kids get overloaded with information.
South Carolina pulled off a major recruiting victory with the #1 player in the country, Jadeveon Clowney. He stands 6'5", or 6'6", I believe, 250 pounds, and has a frame that he could potentially add another 25 to 30 pounds. What does that mean to South Carolina?
They got one heck of a football player. But you know what? Steve Spurrier, use him for these 3 years. Make him a starter right away because he ain't going to be here in 3 years. He'll be gone. He'll declare after his junior year that he is going to go to the National Football League. I met him at an All-Star game last year, and I'll tell you, this guy is a horse. He had 29 sacks this year, and it came down to Clemson and it came down to South Carolina, but he had a bunch of buddies that were going to South Carolina. In fact, a couple of them that played with us in our All-Star game here, Sean Carson, #1, and so they all decided to go together. And I think it's a great get for Steve Spurrier and his program, but this guy is a future superstar.
National Signing Day has become a spectacle over the years. Why is it drawing criticism from fans and even from coaches?
I think it's because it's putting too much pressure on kids, and a high school kid is now acting like LeBron James, and having his own show like Clowney did to announce where he's going. But you know what? Hey, get used to it because it's going to get worse. I mean, this thing is taking off, this high school recruiting, and more kids now are going to wait and wait and wait to make a decision so they can be the spotlighted guy. There's a guy by the name of Jack Del Rio who we recruited at USC. And, Jack was one of the most fun guys of all time to recruit. He did the same thing, and this was 20 years ago. He waited a week, okay? He waited an entire week because he wanted to be the only guy in the newspaper who made the decision that day after the letter of intent, because everybody else, Artie Gigantino and Mikey Twos and J.D. Redmond, we just get thrown into a list somewhere in the paper if we decide to go to South Carolina or Clemson or whatever, Georgia, or wherever it might be. But if you're that good and you all of a sudden have the national spotlight on you, you get yourself off to a pretty good start from a publicity standpoint. I would advise against it. But, again, I'm not the kid's mother. I'm not the kid's father, obviously.
If a player signs with a university, does they have an opportunity to change his mind?
Yeah, he does, but it's binding. You are ineligible. Say you sign in South Carolina, and you decide, okay, I don't like it here. I made a mistake. I want to go to Clemson. Well, you have to sit out a year. Okay, not red shirt. You get punished for transferring after. That's as good as golden. A letter of intent is binding, which is why they do it. Now, there's another thing that's come up, and you asked me this offline here a minute ago. It's about verbal commitments. Verbal commitments mean nothing. They mean absolutely nothing. It's your word, but they are not legally binding. So if you say you're going to a school and then you decommit and decide to go somewhere else, the only thing that's binding is the fact that you signed a letter of intent with somebody. Your word means absolutely nothing from a legal standpoint. And every good college coach and every experienced college coach knows that, and you're always worried about that final day coming, and you wait and you wait and you wait for those faxes to come across so you know the recruiting process is legally over.
Coach, always a pleasure to speak with you. Thanks for joining us
Okay,
today.
Jay.
We'll be right back with OD Sports, Herb Blanding, and the Next Level Combines.
Badger Sport Play of the Game.
While most of us were enjoying a weekend of relaxation and some warmer weather, high school athletes in Massillon, Ohio took part in offense-defense next-level combine events. Here to talk about the combines, OD's very own Herb Blanding. Herb, welcome to the show.
Welcome, and thank you, JD. Glad to be here.
Well, tell us a little bit about the combines. What do you see at these?
Well, at the combines, we bring in kids from high school players that are coming in to try and work with us on improving their game and getting exposure to go to the next level. We get this weekend we had probably 120 kids out that participated, some great athletes, and we see a lot of potential out there that we'd like to get into our camps in this coming season. Kind of we can help them develop and get them to where they want to be.
How does the combine develop a player's skills?
Well, we have some of the best trainers in the field working with our athletes out there, improving their overall skills and assessment to how they perform in speed-wise, agility, and their quickness when they're on the field. We do the 40-yard dash, which is one of the catalysts, the first thing a college coach asks a kid when they go in for an interview, what's your time in the 40? So we try to teach them the little tricks of the trade and how to improve that speed when they're out there.
Okay. Who all's invited to the combines?
Well, we have two separate combine levels. We do a youth combine and a high school player combine. The youth, we introduce them into the developing stage of what a combine is, how to perform in it, and how to help them develop their game. At the high school combine, we kind of help them get on board to what they need to know when they try to go on to make it to the college level. And by us teaching them that, it give them the upper hand and the speed on getting ahead of the next player that comes along.
Sure, of course. Thanks, Herb. I appreciate it. OD Next Level Combines continue through May. If you want to develop the skills needed to advance your game to the next level, we encourage you to sign up and participate. You can find a location near you at o-d.com/combines. Speaking of training, we'll be right back with a look at how beneficial off-season training is and get some tips from OD coach Brian Mabry and NFL hopefuls Tommy Frazier and Josh Lailson.
Hi, I'm Artie Gigantino from Offense Defense. Our Chicago camp is out in Naperville, 25 miles from downtown Chicago at North Central College.
Now, this university is one block from downtown Naperville, which is rated one of the top places in the United States to raise a family, but also one of the safest places in the United States. This 59-acre campus houses 3,000 students during the school year. It was founded in 1861, and it's got wonderful facilities from a dormitory standpoint and from an athletic standpoint. The Kauffman Center is where we eat. It is one of the better cafeterias in the 40 camps that we go to each summer. But the thing that's so unique about this year for us is we're going to be residing in the Res Rec Center. It's a recreation residential facility that's combined. Campers will be able to come out of their dorms and look into a big field house. It's as big a field house as they have in the National Football League. In fact, last year when there was poor weather on 2 occasions during the camp, we went inside and were able to practice without missing a beat. But the thing that I really like about the campus, not only is everything so close, but 100 yards from the dormitory is the Bendetti Worley Stadium. It's an AstroTurf facility that, again, is almost brand new. We enjoy playing on there. There's plenty of room, and it's about a minute walk between the cafeteria, the Res Rec Center, and the stadium. Hope to see you there in downtown beautiful Naperville.
I'm J.D. Redmond, and this is the OD Sports Report. Even though football season is on hiatus, the next 6 months will be used to work on a player's speed, agility, and quickness. I had a chance to speak with some players and trainers about the importance of skills development and even got some tips that will make your off-season training worthwhile. Let's take a look. For big-time football programs, off-season is a critical development period for the upcoming season. I spoke with Coach Mabry about the importance of speed, agility, and quickness training.
Well, training is always essential. Preparation not only just for the combine, but for the season. One of the things speed, agility, and quickness does, training does, it helps you prepare yourself for the combine. Some of you guys may have already signed up for OD combines in your particular city. There's certain ways. I have 4 phases that I actually do with it. One is we're going to show you is power and explosion, something that is very important. Because when you start doing your broad jumps and your verticals and things like that you're going to be utilizing at the combines, this will be training that you're going to need to have to make sure you maximize your potential that you have. Also, we'll be working out on the track, working on footwork, which is for your speed and your agility. Things like your pro shuttles, things like your 40-yard dash. Sometimes people do 60-yard shuttles, things like that, which are basically redirects or change of direction type of things, which will definitely help you. One reason it's important to train for them is because you want to be your best. You don't want to go unprepared. It's just like going into the football season. You want to prepare your body for the combines in the same way.
You hear so much now about combines and the importance, whether or not you're moving up in the draft. Why are the combines so important? What is it that makes the combine so special?
Well, I think what it is it's basically shows the teams or who's interested in you, if it's colleges, basically what kind of athleticism that you have. When you play in the NFL, it's you got to be an athlete. It doesn't matter if you're the 52nd man on the roster or you're the first-round draft pick. You've got to be able to run. You've got to be able to run, and you've got to be able to redirect, and you've got to have the power and explosion to be able to compete at the highest level.
As we look on some NFL hopefuls, you can see for them, there is no off-season.
Well, we're out here today, me and Josh, we're preparing for the NFL Combine for the 2011 season. Last year I played a little bit with the Saints, and then after that I was with the UFL. And, it just takes a lot of hard work and a lot of preparation, a lot of detail into getting ready for these workouts. We're getting ready for the 40, the vert, the bench, the squat, just a little bit of everything.
Is this your first combine?
Yeah, this is going to be my first combine, so working real hard to see how it goes.
And tell me, how long have you been preparing for the combines?
Honestly, I've been training for about a year, but real hard for the last 7 months.
Okay.
So.
And go through some of the skills and maybe the training that you use to prepare yourself.
Well, I work a lot on different speed drills. The weight room definitely carries over into anything on the field, so I will try to work hard in the weight room. Work a lot on the shuttle and just getting my 40 down, because that's one of the most important things for skill position players like myself. So
Many top athletes profess they never have an off season. Hopefully, these tips will help you maximize your talent and ability. Log on to odforlife.com for more training ideas. We'll be right back to wrap things up. Tune in next time for OD's curriculum coordinator, Mikey Tu, to talk about the new Thumps Tempo program for high school-aged athletes. Offense-defense camps kick off on May 29th, so be sure to sign up soon. The camps are limited to the first 300 recruits. Visit o-d.com to find more information about locations and dates. Also remember that the Offense-Defense Next Level Combines are now in full swing, and you can sign up today at o-d.com/combines. Until next time, I'm J.D. Redmond for the OD Sports Report.